Hey, it's me, Aries, and I wanted to talk about Uber's new tipping option and my thoughts on it, and some of the experience that I have had with the tipping feature. So, Uber has gone, as a company, has gone through a lot of different changes. The CEO was pretty much, ousted out for a whole host of reasons. The main one being the mounting sexual cases built against the company and the culture he helped to, encourage that kind of behavior. But he's gone, so they're doing this new thing now, which is they're supposed to do like 180 days of change. And one of the changes that they're trying to implement, or rather that they have implemented, is this new option for passengers to tip their Uber drivers. And I'm going to tell you some of my experiences with that, whether I think it's going to actually have an effect and whatnot. So, some of you know who drive for Uber and Lyft has already added the option to accept tips. It's been there since the inception of Lyft. It's been one of the main differentiating factors that separated it from Uber. But now, Uber has tipping. And the thing is, I've only experienced it for about a week. About a week. I worked about 4 days last week. And I also only do Uber Eats. I don't do the Uber X stuff anymore. I don't know if I will ever return back to it, but I just prefer to just drive food versus people. Just people don't complain. I'll make a whole video about that later, but so far, last week I got about, looking at my app right now, about $12 in tips. So, not good, not great, but it's $12 that I would not have had if the tipping option was not there. So for that, I'm grateful. And here's the thing. Uber has, since its inception, has built a whole culture around not tipping your drivers. They've actually have instructed their passengers to not tip. Don't worry about the tip. They've said this in their marketing material. So, you have a whole host of long-term Uber users who have been trained to not tip their drivers. And so most people don't tip. And of course, that's pissed off a lot of drivers for numerous times. But I've actually done the math. What could you really expect from tipping if it was actually implemented in Uber in the beginning? And the thing is that, let's say, you're giving people a $5 ride. How much can they really tip you? Would you really expect $1, $2 tip for a $5 ride? On the side of the passenger, that would be like paying a 50% extra for their ride, which, they're not used to paying that at all. So I can clearly see a case where if you're giving short rides, passengers aren't going to give you tips. That's one. Two, they're not trained to give drivers tips. With food delivery is different. When you get, your pizza delivered to your house, it's customary to tip your driver. If you eat out, it's customary to tip your waiter or your waitress or whatever. So there's a history with customers tipping their food serving people. So, so on the Uber Eats side, I can see why you would see more tips. But for drivers, I don't see it actually changing that much. Unless you're giving a really long ride. And even then, the person still might not tip you because there's a lot of misconceptions about the tip being included in the cost of the ride. A lot of riders believe that and still probably believe that. And, they've done upfront pricing, so that's also skewed how much you're actually getting paid and how much is actually going to you versus Uber. So, can't expect much. Back about a year or two ago when I was doing Uber X, I actually did the math and I figured, if I gave like 10 rides, and each person on average gave me about $2 tip, I can expect about about $20, give or take $1 or $2. You know, not good, not great, but that would pay for the gas to do it, you know, for that particular day. So, and depending on how much I made that particular day, which it varies a lot. It still varies now because they've changed so much, which is why I don't do it, the driving portion of it anymore. $20, that might be like a 10 or 20% increase to what you're already getting for driving people around on Uber. So drivers can expect maybe a 10% increase in their income from the tipping feature. But once again, passengers are not trained to tip their drivers. As a matter of fact, a lot of passengers might not even know that they can tip your drivers. A lot of passengers probably still believe that the fare, the tip is included in the price of the fare. So it's going to take a very long time. Probably like the new Uber customers, not the ones that are currently or used the service in the past. Those people, they probably will never tip you. And if they do tip you, it's not going to be a great tip. I'm sorry. But the new people who come after them, you know, then, you know, you might see some tips. But even then, it's not going to be a high tip, especially if it's a short ride. Because you have to imagine the minimum price to take a ride with Uber is like around $4 or $5. You know, would you really expect someone to give you $2 when they're only paying $5 for the whole ride? And, you know, at less than 2 miles, that ride might last like, less than 5 or 10 minutes. So I can see why people would not tip you, which is why once again, I don't really drive Uber X as much as I used to, if at all. So yeah, don't expect to see a lot of changes, because even though they've implemented the feature for passengers to tip, that doesn't mean they will tip, because they've encouraged them to not tip. They've have misinformed them. As a matter of fact, there's been a whole lawsuit about that. You know, passengers thinking that the tip was included in the price of the fare. There's a whole lawsuit, class action lawsuit behind that stuff. So I'm pretty sure you've gotten emails about it from that one chick who's going around suing all the sharing economy apps, sharing something, you know, that chick. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the tipping stuff. Like, you know, don't expect much from it. You might get something, but, you know, don't expect it to completely rock your whole world. I mean, take me for example. You know, I worked practically, you know, almost a whole week, and I only saw $12 in tips. I mean, it's not nothing, but it doesn't move the needle, so to speak. So yeah, so what do you guys think? What has your experiences been? Is it different with Uber X? Like, are you guys getting tips on there? Like, what are you seeing? For those who are just doing Uber Eats, like, are you seeing tips on that also? Let me know. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Please comment and subscribe. Later.